Intelligence, a virtue that we strive to reach for our entire lives. Geniuses have crafted society into what it is today. We thank the people, nay, the gods, that spend every waking moment of their life working to push the boundaries of what we believe to be normal. The intellects of the world are reshaping the future.
And you can be too. With just 4 easy payments of $9,000, you can be a scholar. If you're choosing to go to an in-state public school, that is. If you're going to an out-of-state public school, it's only 4 easy payments of $25,000. Of course, if you decide to go to an out-of-state private school, it will be 4 easy payments of $50,000 on average. But don't worry, with a bachelor's degree, you are securing a job that you will absolutely adore. Oh, well, at least you won't be in debt for that long. Okay, at least you can tell people you're smart.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like our younger generation has put a really big focus on any and all things academic. It could be the pretty notes, or the crippling fear of life outside of college because it's basically required to get a job, and every adult in your life has said not going to college is a mistake. But hey, either or, am I right? Essentially, our generation seems to be more involved in education than previous ones. Just look at how many more students are going to college nowadays. I guess it just means that the people of this generation are more intrigued with bettering society and growing to become a more complete and intelligent person. You know, learning for the sake of learning, right? Well, I'd actually argue that our generation values intelligence not because we love learning, but because we've romanticized intelligence in the process of learning.
Let me explain. What are some things that we associate with intelligence? Maybe working hard, being productive, and we put those traits on a pedestal. We like feeling productive, like we're getting things done, and schoolwork is the perfect opportunity to scratch that itch.
This notion of schoolwork being an opportunity to feel good about oneself is undoubtedly preserved by the countless videos about this exact topic. Study with Me's, Guides to Being Productive, and the super aesthetic notes that are beyond good looking. Seriously, I'm convinced these people share their DNA with a typewriter. Perpetuate the importance of these values. Productivity, success, aesthetics, all these positive traits are strongly tied to the process of learning, and therefore intelligence. Don't get me wrong, all of this isn't necessarily bad. I love being productive. That's right, I got an aesthetic notion. What's wrong with adding a little fun to an otherwise grueling process? If you didn't spend the wee hours of the night getting yelled at by your parents for not being able to do basic math in elementary school, you're lying. So why not make the act of learning fun? Well, this gets a little problematic when we start associating intelligence with prestige. To see what I'm talking about, look no further than the college education system. As we said before, college is very popular nowadays. In fact, between the years 2000 and 2018, the amount of undergrad enrollment has increased by 28%. Students nowadays feel a pressure to attend college from family members, the American education system, and society as a whole. Not going to college is seen as a bad move, college dropouts as failures, and this same judgmental mentality has extended towards school you're attending. For example, they need no introduction, the Ivy Leagues. You've heard of them. Harvard, Stanford, Brown, Yale. These schools are the crowning achievements of education. They are many students' dream schools, but why? Sure, they have great programs. There's a reason they're so often highly ranked. But let's take a look at that acceptance rate.
That's right, less than 5%. There's a higher chance of me pulling a shaggy dog and going into my dog's battle.
About to change his life.
Just kidding. But the chances of getting into one of these schools are incredibly low. And with that low number comes a sense of prestige. Hell, these schools are often nicknamed elite schools. You're one of the best. You outworked, out-hustled, out-grinded every other pathetic loser in your class. You're an Ivy Leaguer.
These colleges are representative of all the values people associate with romanticized intelligence. Productivity, hard work, everything people want to be is found at these elite schools. And this feeling of eliteness is reinforced by the idea of connections. With attending Harvard comes the name. People often say it isn't about better programs, but about better connections. Those going to top schools get the recognition. They have the connections that lead to more successful postgraduate careers. Better jobs means higher pay, which means a better life, which means you're an elite member of society yet again. Let's go! Meaning, when compared to other people in other colleges with lower acceptance rates or less recognizable names, like state schools or community colleges, Brad over here looks like a god amongst men.
People put certain colleges on pedestals. There's a reason why videos of people getting to these elite schools are so popular.
This romantification of prestigious schools is where I believe the community college stigma to come from, which is the belief that for whatever reason, community colleges are lesser than higher universities. I'm not sure if it was just my school, which I'm willing to bet it wasn't, but this idea of prestige or ranking schools was very prominent. Anyone who was anyone was applying to at least 10 schools. Okay, maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but for those of you who don't know, I live in Michigan. Please don't come looking for me. During high school, there was a clear hierarchy. Michigan was the best. For some reason, it just seemed better than any other schools. It had the name, the look, that beautiful blue and maize. It was the #1 school in Michigan, and who doesn't want to be #1? Michigan State was a solid choice, but it was always treated as a second option, the one people go to if you don't get into Michigan. And smaller schools were always treated with a conversation that went like, hey, you know what? Good for you. You're so smart. Honestly, I should be doing something like that. I'd save so much money. As if there needed to be a monetary justification as to why anyone would want to go. It always felt like you were being judged for what school you were going to, and those who prioritized more elite universities had a certain prestige to them, a certain confidence. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not trying to villainize anyone who's trying to get into an elite school. Not everyone who goes to Michigan or an Ivy League school is some cocky jerk that stares at themselves in the mirror for 24 hours a day. Rather, I'm trying to get across the fact that intelligence is now paired with prestige, eliteness, and a sense of superiority. Nowadays, high school academics is more of a competition than anything else, and even worse, it's a competition that we romanticize through aesthetics. So back to my earlier question, what's so wrong with romanticizing the process of learning? Well, it's a problem when that romanticization creates a hierarchy of schools and romanticizes a very unhealthy education system. The increase of applicants to college, and therefore the increased recognition of academia in the hierarchy of universities, has created the idea of the true dream school. We love watching people get into elite universities because it's unrealistic to a degree to ever get into these schools. And that's what's been a massive problem in our school system. What happens when our dreams are nearly impossible to reach? It is no secret that the workload that high school students face nowadays is absolutely insane. For reference, I'll share my personal experiences during high school, but we'll also take a look at the average of students, school requirements, and so on. I am not saying this to brag, in fact, quite the opposite. I didn't enjoy the process of learning during high school. I only became interested in learning, reading, drawing, everything you should be learning in school in the summer of my junior year, which, coincidentally, was my worst year of school. I took 4 AP classes, an honors class, and my only class that wasn't quote-unquote advanced was Diversity Council, a class that most would agree looks good on a college application. I was on varsity cross country in the fall, varsity track in the spring, and basketball and track training in the winter. Every day looked the same. Wake up, oftentimes go into school early for various club meetings, help from teachers, or meetings for different honor societies, not to flex. I would go to school all day, yada yada, typical stuff. After school, I'd go to practice until around 6, come home, and study until I went to sleep. More often than not, I would stop my work at 12, even though I had more, because I prioritized my sleep and well-being. Meaning, I had so much work that I would spend all my free time doing said work, and still have work I didn't have time to do. And the worst part was that compared to other people, I had it easy. I wasn't in a drama club that would end at 8, I didn't have a job, I didn't take more advanced dual enrollment classes at colleges until my senior year, and I wasn't in a circumstance that kept me from succeeding. A consistent 4.0 GPA, advanced classes, varsity sports, clubs, I did a lot and it drained me. But the thing is, there was no way I would ever get into a lot of schools. So what does it take to get into these more elite schools? Looking at Michigan for a reference, of those entering Michigan's class of 2023, the middle 50% range on the SAT was 1340 to 1530. The ACT range was 31 to 34. The average unweighted GPA was 3.9, and 78.8% of those enrolled possessed better than a 3.75. Applicants to the University of Michigan are now required to submit a class rank, but typically, close to 80% place in the top 10% of their high school class. The vast majority of applicants were some of the best in their class, meaning there were people in the top of their classes who still didn't even get in. And this is just academics. It is widely understood that clubs, honor societies, and extracurriculars only add to your application. And just joining isn't enough. Being the best at those things is what counts. Team leader positions on varsity sports and being the president of a club are desirable positions because of how they look on an application. And on top of all of that, according to College Express, community service and explaining any holes in your application also makes you a competitive applicant. Or in other words, a cog in the system. I'm just kidding. Maybe. Along with this, during your application process, most schools want an essay describing you. Why are you unique? Why are you someone special? What makes you different? But how does anyone have time to explore themselves if they spend all their time doing everything for school? If all that sounds impossible, which it should, keep in mind that Michigan isn't even the best college in the world. Schools like UCLA have applicants where the average GPA is 4.22. Weighted, but still, literally above a 4.0, which is often regarded as the highest one's grade could be. And that's an average. Schools require an impossibly perfect balance of amazing academics, hours of community service, dedication to extracurriculars, and personal exploration. All of this culminates in the fact that the new normal isn't normal. It's perfection. This is something I specifically wanted to highlight about the admissions process. Students are expected to be the closest thing to perfect as possible. I remember feeling really disappointed with low A's on tests because they weren't perfect. But how can I expect perfection when every single class takes hours and hours of studying? Now more than ever, students are facing an impossible standard of perfectionism, all while trying to find out who you are and what you want to do for the rest of your life, so, no pressure. To get into these top schools, schools say they want students to be well-rounded. But how can someone under this much pressure be well-rounded emotionally or mentally? Well, short answer, they're not. It is not a secret by any means that students of today are suffering hard. Increased rates of anxiety and depression are prominent in high school students. Take it from school counselor Kathy Remy. Honestly, I've had more students this year hospitalized for anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues than ever. There's just so much going on in this day and age. The pressures to fit in, the pressure to achieve, the pressure of social media. And then you couple that with the fact that kids can't even feel safe in their schools. They worry genuinely about getting shot. And it all makes it so much harder to be a teenager. Let me say that one more time. I've had more students this year hospitalized for anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues than ever. Usually someone goes to a hospital for, I don't know, a slip on a bike, a broken bone, a car crash, not from the unbearable mental weight and pressure from the impossible expectations of school. But the reason I say all this isn't just to critique our school system that mimics a butcher shop for students' mental health, but rather to give context as to why the academia aesthetic is bad for glorifying a system like this. Let's go over again what we think the academic aesthetic entails. I believe it to be the romanticization of the process of learning and the linkage of intelligence with other generally positive attributes, like being productive and so on. This video, among many others, says it's a focus on the pursuit of knowledge and individuality. Again, this doesn't sound bad at all, but I feel like it becomes a little worrisome when the pursuit is so unhealthy, at least in the American education system. Let's take a look back at those Study With Me videos. Some of these videos are insane. 7 hours? 12 hours? This girl's been studying for years, somebody let her out! The general rule of thumb is to study 2 hours per one of class, and admittedly, this argument of time spent studying could be subjective. Personally, 2 hours of studying per 1 hour of class seems reasonable. But even though it could be subjective, I think it's generally believed that spending over half of your day studying seems a bit ridiculous. But, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. We've all been there, stuck between a rock and a hard place. We can't always get what we want. But this isn't a one-time thing for a lot of these people. This channel has, no joke, hundreds of 12-hour Study With Me videos. Hundreds! I know it isn't true, but it feels like he's studied for longer than I've been alive. I can't be the only one to think that some of these videos maybe aren't healthy. Again, I don't know these people personally, and if they weren't doing well, they'd most likely stop. But I can't help but think how insane this is. This is more clear in the Study With Me videos where people have mental breakdowns, just doing things, am I right? People shouldn't be consistently studying from the time they wake up to the time they sleep. But tragically, some of these videos make people think that they should. Comments saying, "Oh my god, I wish I was this productive," or talking about their most recent breakdowns are common. These videos that romanticize the process of learning could be perpetuating the egregious expectations presented to students. However, I don't blame these uploaders for anything. In fact, it seems like these videos help a lot of people. I don't think they're evil for posting these videos. I'm not trying to make their lives sound miserable because a lot of them seem perfectly fine. What I do think is bad is that we live in a system where we have to do this. They're not making these videos because they want to seem better than others, I hope. They're simply doing what they need to do to succeed and make others who are going through something similar feel more comfortable. But it is bad when we live in a system where someone has to do this to succeed, especially when it is to attain some unhealthy idea of perfectionism that the education system promotes. Rather than questioning the ethics of making students study for 12 hours a day, people want to be like them. Even worse, this type of work is associated with success, productivity, and intelligence, and therefore, a feeling of prestige and a sense of superiority, meaning a lot of students now glorify suffering and an extraneous workload. which is even worse when we talk about the comparisons between students. I will admit, this part of the argument could be seen as quite subjective because I'm drawing a lot of it from my personal experiences, but I'd be shocked if I was the only one that ever went through this. My grade was competitive, or in the words of my counselor, batshit crazy. We had students applying to a dozen schools, some of them the best in the country. AP classes were consistently overstocked, positions in honor societies were heavily sought after. Everyone was trying to be the best. So much so that learning wasn't about learning, it was about competition. Working harder than others, and in the incredibly high expectations of students today, who suffered the most. Oh, you only got 5 hours of sleep? I actually didn't sleep. I had to get up early for an NHS meeting. You have 3 tests today? Ugh, that sucks. I have 5 though. I was studying literally all night. Yeah, I heard this test was supposed to be hard. I studied 8 hours yesterday. I have more homework than you, bitch. These conversations, while paraphrased to a degree, were never uncommon. People always talked about how much work they had, how stressful their lives were, and this came with a sense of superiority. I'm working harder than you became synonymous with seeing who had it worse. Although these subtle displays of superiority were annoying, again, I just can't blame them. Who would voluntarily put themselves through so much stress for classes you aren't interested in? The system makes students maintain these impossible to maintain lifestyles, and the aesthetic, along with intelligence now being paired with prestige, makes people turn a blind eye to the actual issues of this behavior. Instead of thinking, man, we need to find a way to stop this, we think, how am I going to get into college with a B+? We're stuck in a system that negatively affects the very people it claims to help. But what makes it even worse is that it's not just an education system, it's a business. As we saw before, education is beyond expensive. However, this level of wealth adds to the association of intelligence with prestige. It is the academia aesthetic that again promotes this warped pursuit of knowledge that doubles as a pursuit of status. The Gothic libraries with arcs of stone, the fancy uniforms we only really see in private schools, specifically dark academia, promotes a desire for knowledge in only the most prestigious of ways. I believe that the price of certain colleges is also why there's a hierarchy of schools. In my own experiences, it seems like people look down at community colleges because they're easier to get into and because they're cheaper. They may not have the grand libraries and dark castles that the academia aesthetic loves, but at least students there aren't hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Going to an elite school doesn't just come with the perception you're more hardworking, productive, and elite, but also that you're wealthier than others. And who doesn't want to be wealthy? Of course, this isn't true. Thousands of students are courted into loans or given financial aid, but the perception still sticks. Except, even though this prestige is something students are controlled by, the exclusivity and perception of wealth is simply a facade. Let me explain. The system benefits the wealthy. That's it. Okay, I'll do a little more explaining. Not everyone going to these elite schools are what you would call deserving. One way it isn't fair is through the use of the legacy title. Legacy students are children of people who have previously attended the university, so essentially, you've sold your bloodline to the banana slugs. And this has a pretty big impact. Let me spit some facts real quick. A study of 30 elite colleges found that primary legacy students are an astonishing 45% more likely to get into a highly selective college or university than a non-legacy. Secondary legacies receive a lesser pick-me-up of 13%. One study revealed that being a legacy was equivalent in admissions value to a 160-point gain on the SATs on a 1600-point scale. And, at Harvard, as many as 1/3 of students offered admission have crimson lineage. Fellow Ivies, the University of Pennsylvania and Brown, also admit upwards of 33% of legacies, more than double their overall admit rate. Princeton, with its minuscule 5.6 admissions rate, class 2024, has been known to admit over 30% of legacy candidates. But surely not every school does this, right? Well, only about 3/4 of the top 100 schools in the nation do, so I'd say a few. All this of course meaning, say it with me now, students who are undeserving still find themselves in a spot where they are perceived as superior through a false sense of prestige. Thank you. But it's not just legacies. We all know about the massive college scandal codenamed Operation Varsity Blues, apparently. But that scandal got spotlighted because it had recognizable faces tied to it. Don't get me wrong, it's terrible. But it's also representative of the morally corrupt underground operations that happen all the time, that have been titled development cases by the author of the novel The Price of Admission: How America's Ruling Class Buys Its Way into Elite Colleges. Golden defines these cases as children of important donors or potential donors who receive an even more substantial advantage than legacies. Universities love admitting students that benefit them, whether through making them look better or giving them money, and apparently the latter happens a lot more often than many would expect. According to Richard Kallenberg, a senior fellow at the Century Foundation who has spent years studying the economic inequalities in education, colleges say we've got these really valuable slots, and we're going to leverage it either through squeezing our alumni for donations or trying to get wealthy individuals who have no previous connection with the university to donate. And these aren't just tiebreakers. According to Golden, it can be as big as 400 or 500 points out of 1600 on the SAT, using the old 1600 point scale, making an average student with a score of 1100 become a serious applicant to an elite university. Again, we see that people who aren't deserving of being accepted into elite universities are being accepted into elite universities. All this meaning that the perceived eliteness of these schools that specifically dark academia promotes is a complete sham. Students who could potentially come nowhere near being considered an applicant can be accepted because of how rich they are. Because they're rich, the association of money with intelligence persists. The amazing exclusivity that everyone craves when comparing themselves to fellow students means nothing if students who are accepted aren't worthy of being there. It's ridiculous, it's shameful, but we still believe in the prestige. We still believe in the high status of elite schools as if they aren't committing crimes. We still feel bad for being denied when little do we know it was Brad over here that got in for paying $500,000 rather than being a good student. But then there's the countless ways where students don't even get opportunities to apply to these schools. SAT tutoring, unequal opportunities to take AP classes, private versus public schools, the economic gap between students, all further promotes the eliteness towards certain universities that, even though it's a sham, we still believe in and desire anyways. Similar to the way we've normalized mental stress and ridiculous expectations, we have stopped questioning these tactics to get into schools that should probably be illegal. Even the website I got the stats about the legacy admissions from gave advice on how to use legacy admissions to your advantage. What is this? Why is this system still in place? How much unfair can it be? What the?
Alright, I know things got a little hectic there, and that barrage of facts made me look like Ben Shapiro, but I want to come full circle and give an overview of the argument.
1. The academia aesthetic has romanticized the process of learning, which, again, isn't a bad thing, but it is bad when 2. Academics have become associated with traits such as being productive and having a strong work ethic, but also tainted by its association with prestige. 3. The academia aesthetic romanticizes an unhealthy system to the point where we have stopped questioning the problematic system and simply make it look pretty. 4. College is a business, and specifically dark academia promotes the pursuit of knowledge in only the most expensive of ways. And 5. Intelligence is therefore associated with wealth that adds to the sense of prestige, which is all fake because of how broken the system is. We aren't trying to stop the system because deep down, we all want to seem prestigious, so we adopt the style and move on.
Okay, there it is, but first, some closing remarks. I'm not mad or upset with people who are trying to make the process of learning more fun. With a system that's so messed up, it isn't bad to try and make it more enjoyable. It becomes problematic when the aesthetic covers up or promotes a very unhealthy and corrupt system. Also, not everyone who gets into these elite universities are villains or some evil, conniving, rich person's son that wants to take over the world or be rich. There's a lot of people that worked really hard to get there, harder than I worked in high school, and I have to commend them for that. There's just other people in that system who do have it a lot easier for no reason except for being wealthy. I'm not angry at the people, I'm angry at the system and the way it's being covered up. And although it may seem like I've been flaming people that have gone to these elite universities, I don't mean to at all, and they should be proud of their work. Okay, that's it. I'm done. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this argument made sense and my voice did not get annoying after the first 5 minutes. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. And leave some comments in this video if you have anything else to say about the matter. I'd love to hear what anyone has to say. Alright, peace.